Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Secure Your Future, Fully Managed Backup and Recovery. And as we like to say, it's never been easier to host and deliver your own backup service. And that's today's topic. So let's jump right into it and get rolling because we don't have too much time together and we have a lot to cover. My name is Greg Newman. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Zadara. I'm joined today by Aaron Farragon, Executive Vice President of Asigra. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Greg. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Mark Levitt, our Senior Director of Product Marketing, is also here as one of our experts. Hi, Mark.
Good morning.
Excellent. So what we're going to do in today's webinar is go through the topic of backup and backup as a service in particular, some of the challenges that service providers face, and of course the opportunity as well. And then we'll leave some time for questions. So let's jump right in. Oh, by the way, everybody, a little housekeeping note. If you do have a question, please type it into your panel in the GoToWebinar interface. And at the end, we will be looking through that panel and look for questions that we can answer. If we don't get to them all, we will certainly follow up with an email later. Okay, I am sure everybody on this webinar is familiar with backup and recovery to some extent. And of course, we all know that it has been really growing. It is a multi-billion-dollar market already, looking to grow at a combined rate of 24% in the next few years.
Just enormous.
It is. Aaron, in your business, I'm sure you've seen exactly how this has been working.
Absolutely. It's probably the maybe second or third most favorite or kind of existing service in the portfolio of channel partners today to offer to their customers, just behind managed monitoring and in many cases managed network services. So very popular. Almost every managed service provider has an offering where they help their customers with backup and recovery.
Yep, exactly. So we all know the reason, of course, for this growth is that there's more data than ever. People need to protect it. That is becoming more difficult for them to do, and looking for services that can help can really be something that corporations can benefit from. And of course, it's a real business driver for our service provider partners. Not only does it add recurring revenue from what we like to call a sticky service and increase wallet share from a customer, it allows you to really reach out and perhaps capture new customers in new segments and even new geographies because of the ability to do backup in remote ways. And we're going to be talking in a little bit later about some of how that works. But again, Aaron, I'm sure you've had customers tell you stories about the impact that adding backup as a service to their lineup has had on their businesses.
Indeed, and not only is it a business driver, and I think it has been for 8 to 10 years now, as it's become kind of a stable, consistent element of every partner's portfolio of offerings, and has helped them grow their businesses and kind of move from sell once, collect once to sell once, collect every month through that whole monthly recurring revenue model. But it also helps partners increase the overall value of their business. And I know we're going to talk about that today a little bit as well. So it's not just a business driver, but it's a business valuation growth vehicle, to use that word.
Yes, exactly. So there are real long-term implications, positive implications for the business. But to jump to the next slide, because it's important people have a full picture. There are ways to do this that are better than others, and we see that a lot of businesses start with a brokered backup solution. As we've talked about, Aaron, it really is an imperfect solution. Talk to us a little bit about this, because I think there are a lot of people out there that have been approached or maybe are even using a brokered backup solution, and there are some real trade-offs to be made there, and maybe trade-offs that aren't really in the best interest of the service provider. What do you think?
I agree, and I think there's a bit of a history and context that partners fully recognize. The original, they're kind of two categories that partners are in. They're in either one or the other, as they're delivering not just backup services, but their other cloud services in their portfolio. They are either brokering, in other words, they are reselling somebody else's backup service or monitoring service or whatever cloud service. Office 365 is an example, and so on. Or they are actually the service provider where they're delivering it, they're controlling it, and so on. And so the context is in the early days as partners were moving from the reseller business model to the MRR business model, it was a lot easier, simpler, cheaper, less risky to move to MRR by becoming a broker. And so that's what many partners did. And that's why many partners today are brokering not just backup, but other cloud services. But you're right, there are trade-offs. And I think as partners have matured in the last 7 to 8 years, they are now understanding that these trade-offs are coming to the fore. They get the MRR business model. They've, for the most part, shifted over to MRR. And so what's happened after 7 to 8 to 9 years? Well, the original margins they were getting when they originally started brokering have declined, from 40-45% down to an average MSP's MRR, brokered cloud service MRR, is about 17%. So much lower, less than half even. They've finally understood that their customer lists are not their secret sauce. In the old days when they were reseller, never would they expose their customer lists to, their vendor or their distie. That was a closely guarded secret. Because brokered services are just out there, it's kind of a me too. Many competitors, and it's kind of in many cases it's commoditized. So it's just what's your price for a backup service or a monitoring service or whatever. And the other challenge or the gotcha that partners are now realizing after so many other partners are also brokering is those end customers can basically go from one broker or one MSP to another MSP. There's the stickiness has kind of become undone. The glue is a lot weaker, if you will, in a brokered service than in a service that you actually control and deliver and manage yourself.
You used a really important word there. I want to hit on it. Control. I think that's what all of us are looking for. We want to know that we can control our own destiny. And you lose that control, don't you, when you're...
You do. You very much do. And you give up the control, when you originally became a broker, and you are a broker today, you give that up. But I think as you mature as an MSP, control becomes more and more important, because that's how you stay in business for a long period of time. And that's how you actually grow the value of your business as an MSP, instead of really growing the business and growing the value of your underlying vendor's business.
Right.
So
right, exactly. And so this is, I think perhaps not apparent to people who haven't been in the business. Your description and what you've just portrayed, I think, makes it clear that brokering is not necessarily going to be in your best interest. So then, let's talk about what is. What should we be doing differently?
Right.
And here we have 3 reasons to deliver your own backup as a service. And of course, what do you see on the screen? The very first thing: control and control. The first 2. And so it's a theme with us around here for sure. But it matters, and it matters because this is what we hear from our customers and from our partners.
Well, it matters because it's their revenue and margin stream.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly, Margot. So the control is really the source, or the fundamental pillar of your business as an MSP. It's where you're going to increase the value of your business. And so, yes, these are 3. There may be other reasons, you want to control or to deliver your own backup service, and not just, again, backup others. So the first one is pricing and margins. When you're a broker, obviously it's not your service. You're not deciding the price of the service, and the margins have declined in the last 7 to 9 years, maybe 10 years. And partners are seeing that again and again. There's a variety of reasons that that's happening. The underlying the underlying service providers themselves in the last 18 to 24 months, they've been getting acquired by private equity and other kind of new owners who want to grab the margin for themselves to fund the acquisitions that they did. So pricing and margins are really important, and you control them when you deliver your own backup service. The second one is communications. Your customer lists are no longer a secret, that you hold. All your customers are visible. The name of your customers, even in your legal agreements between you and your underlying service provider, supplier, they have Nexus, what's called Nexus. They have a touch point. They know who your customers are. And increasingly, we hear MSPs talking around the water cooler at their peer groups and other places, channel events, how some vendors, not all, but some vendors that claim to be channel only, are basically communicating and marketing right over the heads of the MSPs directly to the end customers, telling them about new features, new functions, new technologies, new products, which irritates, of course, to no end the MSPs. So controlling the customers, because you're the MSP, they're your customer, you brought them, that's the currency that you bring to the table. And then finally, making sure that the MRR. So when you broker, yes, there is monthly recurring revenue. The question is, what is the quality of that monthly recurring revenue? And this is super important for MSPs that are looking to sell their business in the next 4 to 6 years or 7 years. And they want to increase the value of the MSP as a business for the buyer. And the reason why when you deliver your own service, the MRR is of higher value is because when the customer, really what you're selling are customer contracts, but if you're a broker, those customer contracts can easily be moved by the vendor, your underlying vendor, or the customer themselves can move to just another broker, or to another vendor altogether. So they're less sticky and they are of lower quality. So the buyer comes to your business and says, I'm not going to pay you, quote unquote, $100 or euros or whatever, pound sterling for your business, per contract. I'm going to pay you $35 or $30, 1/3 or 1/4 per customer contract, because there's a lot more risk. So those are really important reasons why, at a business level, to deliver your own backup service and other services, but really to control. Now, I want to pause here and say that you shouldn't deliver every cloud service that you have in your portfolio. It doesn't make sense to do that in some cases. You have to pick and choose the right services that, again, increase the value of your business, gives you a lot of the control, and that it makes sense to do that. Like Office 365 is not going to be a service you necessarily want to stand up and deliver yourself. That's where it makes sense to broker, or other services where it doesn't make sense to deliver yourselves.
Yeah, it's a good point. You need to be looking carefully at what it is you're offering and what you're taking on, and the benefit to you and to your customers by offering it directly rather than brokering. And you're looking for something that's more integral and not necessarily ancillary when you do that. You hit on something very important, Aaron, and we're going to talk about it here in this next slide, and that is growing your business in such a way that ultimately it's worth more in the long run than it would otherwise be. And a big part of that, of course, and you mentioned the consolidation and the private equity groups, and we see a lot of that activity happening. They're looking for not just revenue streams that are recurring, they're looking for good profit margins as well, and they're looking to see the longevity of those things, the stickiness of those things. What we find, and I wanted to put this chart up so we could all talk about it just briefly, is that when you begin to really take control of that revenue stream, and you're offering a service like backup that is integral, the compound growth story is just tremendous.
Right, and this is a great example of being able to offer multiple services, to layer services in based on your understanding of your direct customer base. And this can't happen if you're not sticky, right? We keep coming back to sticky, right? You don't get that kind of revenue growth, you don't get the compounding effect if you don't bring enough value in there to keep you stuck into that customer and go after larger share of the wallet.
Yeah, you need that foundation, that base. Otherwise,
And I was going to say, you're 100% correct. And unfortunately, or fortunately, let's say, in the last 7 to 9 years, the partner community has been kind of lulled into this feeling that, oh my God, it's so hard, to stand up a service and actually deliver it. Why would you ever want to go and do that? Just resell ours. And while that seemed to make a lot of sense at the beginning, to steal Jeffrey Moore's phrase, crossing the chasm from sell once to sell every month, it no longer is the case. Technology and capabilities in the market and technology has evolved where it's actually very straightforward and very simple and easy to stand up and deliver your own service to get this huge business benefit, this compound growth benefit.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think what we've done to this point, I hope so, everybody on our webinar today, I hope you'll agree that we've painted a picture, a compelling portrait of why you want to take control of your business by offering backup as a service directly on your own rather than brokering. And what I'd like to do now is let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about backup. And Asigra, one of our long-standing valued partners, has award-winning backup software that is offered in such a manner that it really functions well in the as-a-service world that we live in too. So as a partner, we really mesh well here, and we're proud to be partners with Asigra. And Aaron, I'd like to know if you can talk to folks a little bit about your software and some of its unique benefits.
Sure. So it is software. We are not a service provider ourselves as Asigra. Nobody backs up to Asigra. Nobody sends data to us and so on. We don't compete with our customers, which are really the service provider, the MSP ecosystem all over the world. And it's a piece of software. It's a platform of software. It's designed specifically, for service providers, multi-tenanted, very secure, lots of security-oriented posturing we have taken in the last several years, just because backup is becoming a very favorite target for hackers and ransomware and so on these days. If they render your backup useless, you basically have to pay, or your customers have to pay the ransom. So it's about being very easy to use, deploy. Lots of intuitive dashboard, kind of web-based console, lots of APIs, RESTful APIs that you can integrate into existing dashboards that you might and probably already use as an MSP. Very fast recovery capabilities for different types of data, different types of use case scenarios. And it's hosted in the sense that you can effectively run it, wherever you want to, either in your own data center, in a colo. You can run it in the Zadara cloud, which we are announcing. And it's so easy to do that it's not the case like it was maybe 10 years ago, where it was, oh my God, I have to have data centers and armies of technicians and so on. It's actually a very low people print and very easy to deploy and to deliver a very high quality data protection service downstream to your customers, so that you can capture those big business benefits that we talked about earlier.
Exactly, and of course the reason we're hosting this together is that when you look at running Asigra at your data center as a service provider, we think that there's no better way to do it than to do it with Zadara and our storage as a service solution, because not only are we integrated with Asigra and you can get the Asigra software running on our hardware, it's in fact, it gets better, Mark.
There's synergy.
Yeah, there's synergy there, because we offer storage as a 100% OpEx service. In fact, that's the central piece on this slide. The idea of having a single storage service for different tiers of storage really becomes important in a backup scenario, right? We talk a lot about it in a lot of contexts, but this is really where it becomes important.
Right. I mean, so our general offering is like that we do provide different kinds of storage for different applications, right? I mean, we know if somebody tells you they have one size storage that fits everything, they're definitely selling something and not very well.
Yeah.
Right. But but even within the backup area, and Aaron can certainly comment on this. What we're talking about is the ability to have multiple tiers to change both to focus on what your recovery time needs to be, and also tiers that may affect where it's physically located.
Yeah.
Right. If you need, offsite backup is a good thing. Aaron briefly touched on, or at least mentioned the word ransomware. That's obviously a hot topic, and one of the key protections there is to follow backup best practices.
Let's look at this slide while you're talking, because I think this is a good one. It's got the different tiers of storage and where
that's the great example, is that you're following a backup best practice here from any primary storage. We think it should be Zadara, but
could be, right?
It could be. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And because we have the general application of the Asigra backup, which is very general, to our back end storage here, optimized to get you to different levels, to get you different recovery times and different backup times and different retention times, right? So
and different price points, I would add to that, because that's important too to a service provider, right?
Yeah, and not coincidentally different price points. That's exactly right.
Yeah. All right, good. I'm glad we're looking at this diagram. I find, that's just me, but I think a lot of people feel the same way, that you know, you show me a diagram, aha, I get it.
Yeah.
I see now the role that the different people and parties play here. One of the things you don't see in this diagram is that a SIGRA is actually, you know, running. We have a SIGRA. I know, Aaron, you guys announced this. I think it was yesterday. You talk about the appliance, right? And I just want to point out for those folks on this webinar who perhaps had seen that announcement, you can find it at a SIGRA's website. You can find it over the wires, and it's also on our website and our social media because we're excited about it. This appliance is, it's a word I think we're all familiar with, appliance, but what does it mean in this context?
Yeah, or maybe if Aaron could just like draw a verbal box around the diagram here.
Yeah, right. That's a good idea. That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
so you take the Asigra software and you kind of run it inside the green you know, hosts or controllers, if you will, that are depicted here. And instead of running Asigra externally in a VM externally or in its own dedicated host external, you're basically you know, converging it and collapsing it and putting it all in and integrating it, you know, tightly in one offering where you have the compute, the storage, and the application, the Asigra backup application in our case here, running in one offering, and you pay it on an OpEx basis. So it's easy to buy. All your customers' data, wherever it can reside, is backed up into it. It's aligned with your backup service. If you're an MSP, you're delivering it, you're getting paid on a monthly basis. You pay for the underlying appliance as a monthly service. And so it just makes a lot of sense. That's why we did it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you described it exactly the way you did because you know, storage in the enterprise realm, storage isn't just storage, is it? There's more to it.
There's more to it, and especially, and I'm glad you have this slide up because this goes. We've talked about you know, the functions and the business aspects, and the business rationales for this is for MSPs, all very important. But of course, and the quality of the SIGRA offering in terms of being feature rich and very sophisticated as well as easy to use. But the other thing is you have to deliver it in a way that's going to keep the customers happy, you know, or sticky or not, they're not going to stay for long, right? If they don't like the offering. One of the key things that we try to focus on is how we deliver, how we as Zadara deliver. You know, we deliver multi-tenant efficiency, and so this can be part of the MSP's offering that they can, as Aaron pointed out, this can be located on their premises, in their colo, it can be in our storage cloud. Any location is fine. But the key is that every customer can have their own resources. So, and this is a diagram that should be pretty familiar to people that deal with things like virtual machines. But the idea is that every one of our virtual controllers, and those are the green boxes that Aaron was talking about, where the SIGRA software is also running. Every one of those controllers has its own compute, memory, and storage resource and networking resources. So that means that you don't have to worry about what we call the noisy neighbor problem. If one of your customers is sucking up a lot of resources, well, they can't suck up more resources than they have, and you get to control that very closely, and they will not impact anybody else. So all the customers that you have are guaranteed that they will get the performance and the responsiveness that they expect.
This is a good time to interject with our tagline. One of the taglines we like to use, of course, is control of the enterprise.
Yeah.
Agility of the cloud.
Right, and this is what we mean by control. And not to go on because again, certainly as Greg knows, I can go on the slide for a while.
Well, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, but one of the we focus here on the ability to deliver consistent, predictable performance regardless of how many customers you have. But also there's a security aspect to this too. Mm-hmm. When you don't share resources, your exposure to data leakage goes way, way, way down. And that's part of the control thing too, right? Both of those are aspects of control. You get to control the performance that you deliver, and you get to control the way the data flows so you're not exposed to the kinds of malware attacks we're talking about.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, Mark. I'm really glad because that's a fundamental aspect, of course, of data backup security. Aaron, I'm sure you see this. If in looking at this slide, if we had two customers, as you see, or two Asigra customers, the green one and the blue one, they're totally separate.
They're totally separate. They have their own CPUs, they have their own memory, they have their own cache, they have their own storage medium.
Yeah.
And so never the twain shall meet.
Yeah. Yeah. This is if you could rank it, Aaron, tell us, where does security rank for your customers? I'm
Well,
sure.
these days it's kind of number one, up there. Everybody is making sure that their backup copies are as secure as the front end primary copies, only because the bad guys are targeting the backup copies because they want to delete them, so that when they delete your primary, you have no backup and you have to pay the ransom. So absolutely, the data itself comes into the VPSA, into the Zadara storage, encrypted, compressed, deduped. That's all the work that a Seeger does to bring it in. But the backup data itself has to be, secure. You guys are putting a big security layer around it. We are, cleaning the backup data as it comes in, making sure malware is stripped out of it. And in the event something does slip in unwittingly, when it gets recovered, we're also, again, the malware detection engines are also working, and we prevent the malware, the ransomware, from getting recovered back into the production environment. So lots of security-oriented, multi-factor, two-factor authentication stuff happening all over the place.
Right. So the customer can feel secure, and the point that Aaron was making about the malware, that's obviously very hot, and that is something that has changed in the market relatively recently, right? The focused attacks on the recovery media.
Yeah.
But security's been a number one concern for people for quite a while, and so the key thing is that for Asegra and for Zadara, we're actually building on very strong security backgrounds.
Yeah.
This isn't something new to us.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, I'm glad we had a chance to go through some of the architecture. People like to see how it works. I'm always fascinated because every time I get into this, I'm reminded that that our founders and our engineers have some really smart folks on that team that know what they're doing, and we've been doing this a long time. And so what we like to say, and this is, we think, a great way to think about Asegra and Zadara together is that we give you a platform to transform your business, and that word gets thrown around a lot. Transform, transform your business is a tall order, but really when you look at the approach we bring, and when you see how bringing on board Asegra plus Zadara in that package can give you deep capabilities with a footprint that's flexible and convenient to manage, in other words, doesn't present a burden to your operation. You realize, wow, this approach, maybe it's time to rethink my approach to storage.
Yeah. And actually, I don't want to go back to something Aaron said several slides ago, because I like the phrase. I might steal it. People print here. Right?
Yeah, good.
You don't have to lay on a whole staff of experts to implement this kind of thing. It's a light lift, right? You can quickly get in. You can easily manage your investment to your opportunity. You don't have to take big risks on acquiring not just staff but also large capital equipment, things like that. You don't have to do that. It's designed to be a light lift. It's designed to come in and get you, give you the opportunity that you can focus your resources on your business, on getting business, rather than having to build out a back end to compute it.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have spent about, I'm trying very hard to be respectful of everybody's time, of course. We've spent about a half an hour, and I'm feeling pretty good that we've covered a lot, but there's so much we can talk about on this topic. I want to make sure that we leave time for questions and answers. Aaron, I want to ask you at this juncture the way in which we have presented this. Have we missed anything? Have we not covered something? I feel we've covered off, but again, it's such a deep topic. I don't want to miss anything.
It is. It's really a deep topic, and I think we've presented the business case for it, which is aligning your service delivery, your cost stack, and so on with the business, with the way your customers are consuming various types of services, backup service in our case, but other storage services and other types of services, aligning those two, in other words, your cost, operations, and delivery stack to the way the customers consume it, just makes sense in today's business age. And I think we've addressed how straightforward, easy, low people print, it is to stand up a cloud service and not, continue to buy in and get lulled by, other marketing, that it's very difficult and it's impossible and you should never try this yourself and that kind of thing. It's not true anymore.
Right.
And so you should and you can, and there are a lot of good, important business reasons to deliver services yourselves.
Yeah, you could say that the technology base has really kind of democratized the ability to offer these kind of services yourself and harvest more of the value that way.
And exactly true. The technology, exactly. And then the business model that we bring, both of us, Sigra and Zadara, really completes that picture. Yep. For the service provider, I think. Which brings up one of the first questions that I see, and I want to share with the group, and let's get some answers from everybody. Question is, I'm going to paraphrase here, but the question is basically, how do I get started? What are the minimums? How does this work? Which of course is one of my favorite questions to hear, because it tells me we got somebody that really likes what they heard. Mark, let's start with Zadara, and I want Aaron to circle in behind us on this. When we talk about our model and we talk about how we work with customers, of course, there's really just a tremendous amount of flexibility here.
There absolutely is. One of the, if you want to get started with us with Zadara, you want to explore it. We have a lot of options. We have free trials available to our prospective partners who would like to see how Zadara storage works and how it can be applied in backup environments or other environments. That's one of the key things, is that if this is your first entry in standing up your own service, then you should understand that it's not a single point. You can do it with the backup, which is a great business justifications, and then you can actually broaden your offerings as you build up your comfort level. Pay only what you use. Pay only for what you use. So again, yeah, your risk is limited to very little. I'm not even sure how to qualify it, right? I mean, it's your investment to take a look at it and to build a little bit of go-to-market for your customer base.
Now, I want to add to that real quick. Many of our customers start small, like you're describing.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of them. Yeah. Well, by numbers, most of them for sure.
With a specific use case in mind, right? They start, and we have customers, and of course we have thousands of VPSAs running all over the world with hundreds of data centers. We have customers that have started small and are in the petabytes. So
it's very. I mean, we talk about the growth of data, and actually I have a sort of a phrase on backup specifically, right? Which is like, data is growing. We know primary data is growing very fast. It's depending on environments, but in some cases incredibly fast, which means that the backup data is growing even faster because you need multiple copies to protect yourself. And if you don't go down an approach like this that simplifies and eases your consumption, then the complexity to support that just explodes.
Yeah.
Right. It's a geometric thing.
Yeah.
So we talked about this as a light lift, that it's sticky, and that's all true and extremely important. It's also true that the simplicity is absolutely central to this being a sustainable offering.
So that brings up a good point I want to make here right now. That is, we get approached by a lot of companies to partner, and we don't partner with everyone that comes to us, because I know when we think on behalf of our customers, we're looking for a good fit and a complementary fit, and a Sigra, I think, exemplifies that. It's their approach, Aaron, your approach, and everything that you do there, just meshes so well with what we do. Why don't you talk a little bit about, I want to make sure the people on the call here know about your business model and how that works.
Yeah, it's again, OpEx the same way. We have straightforward 12, 24, 36-month subscriptions. You can start with a Sigra for several $100 a month, dollars a month. and just kind of grow it as you add, more customers, and as you add more machines. Uh, you're delivering more services, you're charging your customers are paying you more, and that's how a Seeger makes its money. It only makes money when the MSP makes money. So it's exactly aligned, just like Zadara, and that's basically it. We have e-learning for training, we have onboarding assistance, we assign to every MSP a dedicated kind of a partner technical advocate, and they are your kind of a Segra backup expert on your team, with cadence calls, with lots of different kind of things that we do to help the partner on board, including getting customers on board, and design solutions and so on for specific use case scenarios. And so there's lots of assistance and help. Again, not a huge people print, and even dollar print or cost print, I would say, to get started and to deliver your own service for those amazing business benefits. Otherwise, I think really, as a broker or something, you're kind of leaving money on the table on the day you end up selling your business.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think we've given people a good picture, but to dive in and go a little more deeply, we put up on the screen a URL. I know that in some browsers, the URL that you see on the screen may fail if the browser attempts to redirect and the slash is not it does not appear after the .com and before the Asigra. It could be Safari, I'm not quite sure, some browsers, but please be aware of that. If for some reason you're having trouble, please go to zadara.com/solutions/Asigra_backup.php. That's why we put the redirect in there. That's a long URL that I just gave you, but it should work fine for most everybody. But if you're having trouble, make sure the slash is in there on the URL.
Yeah, Greg, I just want to point out, you can just take that and do a post to everybody.
Oh, cool. Let's do it. So
yeah, there you go. Send to all.
Thanks. All right. One of our listeners, Chip, thank you very much, has provided that URL, and Mark showed me that we can send it off. So everybody, check your Q&A screen for that longer URL. And if you're having trouble with the one on the screen, then that longer one should take care of it. Well, it wouldn't be a webinar without at least one technical difficulty, right? That's how it tends to go.
All the slides showed. That's good.
Yeah, that's good this time. We have a lot of fun doing these webinars. Aaron, I've had an especially good time today doing this with you. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that we really only have time for one or two more questions. And so let's see if we can grab just a few more out of what we got. It says here, a little bit of a question around who do they get this from? Well, is it a Sigra or is it Zadara? How does that work? Okay, that's a fair question. The backup software is offered by Asigra, and the storage is offered by Zadara. And in that way, when you're looking at the backup data itself and any functions related to that, that's an Asigra function, and the storage then is Zadara. You'll have a relationship then with both companies. Does that make sense? Aaron, did I say that right?
I agree. But to even simplify it more, if folks wanted to reach out to Zadara, just Zadara, they could do. If they just want to reach out to Asigra, they can just reach out to Asigra, and obviously behind the scenes we'll do what needs to get done to insulate. Asigra is also a Zadara partner. So the reality is we have now in the marketplace an Asigra, what we call an Asigra Cloud OpEx appliance, which includes the Asigra software and the Zadara storage. So you could get it all from Asigra, you could get it all from Zadara, or you could get it independently in case you are an MSP that's already doing business with one of us and not either of us. So it's the way you prefer to buy it, I think, is the bbest answer.
Good. I'm glad we have those choices available. And if for those that want to dive a little more deeply into the free trial, Aaron's exactly right. You can provision through our provisioning portal. You can provision your Zadara. You can add Asigra and test it out for yourself. So
So we make it really simple.
We try to keep it simple, but two independent companies partnered up for an integrated solution. All right, so again, I want to respect everybody's time, and I want to thank everybody. If we haven't gotten to your question, please reach out. We will do our best to answer it and to share those answers with everybody. And if you have any further questions about how all this should work, you can reach us through the websites, either Sigra or Zadara. So thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Aaron, very much for working with us today on this webinar. We're sure glad to be with you.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.